I just wanted to talk about how most Christians, or maybe I should say, how many Christians are unknowingly taking part in witchcraft. Yeah, I want to talk about how many Christians are knowingly taking part in in witchcraft. Yeah, and they're doing so unknowingly. It's not they're not. I don't think most of them are doing it intentionally. But the first text I like to share, or the first text I like to share, from First Samuel chapter 15. And in First Samuel chapter 15 is where we see a conversation taking place between Samuel and Saul after Saul disobeyed God and didn't carry out the command that God had given him through Samuel. And this was to do with him destroying them, completely destroying the Amalekites. And Saul then got into this argument with Samuel, saying that he had indeed obeyed the command to destroy the Amalekites, but that wasn't the case. And so in 1 Samuel 15 verse 22, it says, "And Samuel said, Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, and as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams." Next verse, "For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king." So here it's being made very plain that rebellion, in other words, rebellion against God, is as the same as the sin of witchcraft. So witchcraft is not necessarily just witches and wizards flying on a broom, cooking up concoctions in a massive cauldron. Yes, that does happen, by the way. That actually happens in reality. We tend to think sometimes that these are just fairy tales, that these things don't happen. They do actually happen, but rebellion is also, so witchcraft is also a rebellion against God. So in other, what is rebellion? Rebellion is actually fighting against God and disobeying God, especially when you know what his will is for you and you actually refuse to go along with his will and you fight against it. That's what rebellion is. Now it says here that rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft. And in Leviticus 19:31 we read that it says, "Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards." Now a wizard is a male witch, basically. Don't seek after those with familiar spirits. So those with familiar spirits are, for instance, the witch of Endor that Saul actually ended up going to, because when he prayed to God, God didn't speak to him. Yeah, let me just read that again. "Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God." That's Leviticus 19:31. So I would go as far as saying modern day wizards. Remember, I don't know if everyone had this experience. When I was growing up and we used to watch cartoons on TV, there'll be characters within a cartoon that were depicted as wizards or witches, and they used to cook or not cook, that's not the right word. They'd have a massive cauldron, and a cauldron is just a big pot where they would put in maybe the tail of a lizard. They would put in a different body part from some kind of animal, and basically cook up this concoction in this pot over a fire, and some of that was actually predictive programming. So they sometimes, in what predictive programming is where basically in films and in movies they actually show us what is being done to us or is going to be done to us in the future, and that some have said that this is done so that karma doesn't come back on those who are actually involved in whatever agenda is going on. So, for instance, with the Depop agenda, that if we are shown what that there's a planned Depop agenda through predictive programming, through whether it be through Hollywood or Disney movies, that if we then take part in the Depop agenda after having been shown that this is what they're planning, then karma won't come back on those that have planned whatever agenda it is, whether it's be climate change or depopulation or whatever. Karma won't come back on those who have planned whatever it is, whatever agenda it is that we've been shown in movies. So I was just saying, in some of the cartoons that I used to watch when I was growing up, they sometimes would see witches, brewing up a witch's brew, but I would go as far as saying, for me, modern witches and modern wizards are those who concoct these potions, which are then put in the poison darts, like what we saw happening during this pandemic. To me, those are also wizards as well. So let me just carry on sharing some of the information I have here in front of me. So when you go to Revelation 18:23, it says, "And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee." Now, this part 2 of verse 23 is the one that I'm most interested in. It says, "For thy merchants were the great men of the earth." You know, the merchants are the businessmen, such as Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Warren Buffett and the CEO of let's say Apple, of Microsoft, and many others, those involved in so I forget some of the names of these major companies. Those are also involved in the data centers that have been built around the world. Palantir, I wanted to mention Palantir, and many others. These are the merchants that have been spoken about that are working with Babylon the Great, the papacy, to bring about a new world order in which everyone is going to be enslaved, except for those whose names are written in the book of life. So it says, "For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries," and the original word sorceries there. Remember that so Revelation is in the New Testament, and the New Testament was written in Greek. Okay, so the original word that was there, instead of the word sorceries, the root word was pharmakia, sometimes spelled with an F or sometimes spelled with a PH at the beginning. It says, "For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived." Yeah, so the word pharmakia is used here, and from the word pharmakia we get the word pharmacy. Some like to say chemist. It depends which country you go to, but instead of pharmacy, some will say chemist. Okay, but it's pretty much saying that the pharmaceutical industry is involved in deception, and we know that during the scamdemic there was a lot of deception. In fact, there wasn't actually a pandemic. It was all about two main objectives: Depop agenda, the Depop agenda, and also transhumanism, getting human beings to be integrated into the Internet of Things. Okay, so I've already shared that in some of my previous videos. I'm not going to go into too much detail right now. So so here the word pharmakia is translated to sorceries in the King James Version. Now the word sorceries is to do with witchcraft and magic. Okay, so and in fact, if you go to the Strong's Concordance and you look up the word pharmakia, it will say medication or pharmacy. by extension magic. It also refers to magic. Okay, so and then to explain further, in the Strong's Concordance, it says that pharmakia is the use or the administering of drugs. In number 2, it can also refer to poisoning. 3, sorcery, magical arts, often found in connection with idolatry and fostered by it. Number 4, deceptions and the seductions of idolatry. So pharmakia is magic or sorcery, okay, or the administering of drugs. So this is why I'm saying most Christians are unknowingly taking part in witchcraft, because most Christians, especially during the scamdemic, but even before the scamdemic, even for myself as a child, when I was growing up, I actually had I took the poison darts in various forms. Okay, so let's look at some of the ingredients that are in the the pokes that, especially those that were administered during the scamdemic. We have aborted fetal tissue, aluminium, mercury, monkey cells. So as I'm reading through this, just picture those cartoons or those films that are produced by Disney and Hollywood, where it shows a witch or a wizard brewing up a concoction. Yeah, so monkey cells, pig cells, chicken egg cells, formaldehyde, bovine extract, gelatin, graphene oxide, spike proteins, aluminium hydroxide, barium, canine kidney, fetal bovine serum. Now, when you see the word bovine, it's actually talking about cows, okay? So they're taking serum from cows and putting them in these poison darts. Then there's aluminium hydroxide, aluminium phosphate, amino acids. Now, there are hundreds of other ingredients I could have read, but obviously I don't have time to go through all that. But it's basically a witch's brew. So for those who are taking these poison darts, and I'm saying that to avoid censorship on YouTube, you are actually taking part in witchcraft, because it's I've already shown you that when we go to Revelation 18 verse 23 second part, when it talks about pharmakia, it's actually referring to sorcery or witchcraft. That's what the pharmaceutical industry is involved in, and they're making up all these concoctions. And I know that when you look at the vials of the bottles where the poke is contained, it looks clear, but those things are actually in there. And remember that in Leviticus 11 we're told what we can and should not put in our bodies. So things like I don't know if I mentioned it here. Pig cells, yeah, we're not supposed to put pig cells in our bodies, but these are found in the poison darts, okay. And monkey cells, we're not supposed to put anything unclean in our bodies. Remember that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit, and that our bodies are not our own, okay, we're bought with the price. And I've said many times that we're actually just renting our bodies. We're not supposed to do whatever we want with our bodies and put anything we want in our bodies, including tobacco, alcohol, and even the things that we look at. We should not be looking at porn and looking at dirty things that defile us. So we're not supposed to defile our bodies by, because some Christians will say, yeah, I don't eat pork, but then you take the pork that's got pig cells. You're still putting it in your body, so we should avoid doing that. Okay, so that's how most Christians are knowingly taking part in witchcraft without knowing it, and this is just something that came to my mind that I need to share about that. It's not just about the COVID poke. That's not the only thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about all poison darts or quaxines, that there's actually no evidence that quaxines actually work, and that they've they prevent disease, and that they've cured any disease. There's actually no evidence. It's all propaganda. Okay, so my personal view now, based on the research I've done and what God has opened my eyes to, is that none of these things are good for us. We cannot poison ourselves to health. You can't put poison in your body and then say that that poison will help you to be healthier. That doesn't even make sense. I know that's what the so-called science says, but remember that what is sometimes referred to as science is actually science. What's the word? Scientism. Okay, scientism is basically the blind obedience to what is referred to as science, to the extent that you end up injuring yourself. Remember, the first rule of medicine is do no harm. You're not supposed to put poison in your body for the sake of being healthy. It doesn't make sense, and it will never work. So none of these things actually work. And my advice to everyone is avoid them at all costs. And nowadays, actually, they will even say that they encourage people to take the what's it called, the flu shot, but actually it's got mRNA components in it, no spike proteins and stuff in it. So you can't trust anything that is being said nowadays. I would say the best thing is just to abstain and totally not take part. Remember, the winning move is not to take part in what's going on. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Our health is also quite important as well. Remember that God says that above all, He wants us to be in good health. Your health affects everything. Basically, if you're not in good health, it will affect how you function spiritually, and you won't be able to do anything physically. So yeah, just it's just a bit of information. I would suggest that everyone should just do their own research. Don't just sit there and watch me and believe everything I say. But what I would say is I've done my own research, and I wouldn't be sharing this with you if I didn't know what I was talking about. But I suggest you also do your own research. There's a lot more information out there. There are many books that have been written about this, and many documentaries that have been made about this, and there are organizations that are actually exposing the pharmaceutical industry. And you know that the pharmaceutical industry is actually protected, especially under US law, that they are not held liable for any injuries or deaths that are caused by these poison darts. That alone should raise a red flag. So my advice is, if you call yourself a Christian, don't take part in this stuff, because you are actually taking part in witchcraft. Okay, so hopefully that is of help to those who are seeking the truth, who are not trying to argue with and be rebellious against God, like what's been mentioned in some of the texts that I read. And I'll see you on the next video.